Hello my friends and welcome once again to 7 super short scary stories from Reddit. Need a few short scary stories to bring a chill up your spine? Well then, you're in the right place. Here's 7 super short scary stories by Reddit authors. The first time I died, I didn't realize what had happened. I saw my wife's shocked face at my limp body. I felt her hands shake me. I heard her cries of disbelief as I didn't answer. I saw the paramedics shake their heads. Dread filled me on the way to the morgue. Terror replaced it as scalpels were brought out to begin an autopsy. I felt pain I had never known as they opened me and took out my vital organs. Yet still, I was aware. When nothing unnatural was found out about my death, my burial began. I felt my body being placed in an open hole and a tree placed over me. I had always been a bit of a nature nut and thought that feeding a tree with my remains would be a way to complete the circle of life. I felt the agonizing stages of decomposition, but over time I began to notice other sensations. Warm sunlight, cool rain, the swaying of limbs. Eventually it dawned on me. As the tree fed on the nutrients of my body, my soul was flowing into it. But none of these sensations compared to what came next, the feel of mines. I had been chosen to be buried in a forest that had been planted with people like me, others who had allowed trees to grow with the nutrients of their bodies. Now, I knew how rightly I had chosen. Something had drawn us into the trees, and somehow we could communicate. The youngest still used language to talk. The oldest had surpassed that need. Why use the barrier of words to describe the love of family or the warmth of sun when you could send the feelings directly to another? It was a serenity I had never experienced. Years later, we heard news from a young one. He told us of war. Our country had invaded another. A flood of young ones followed, all telling the same tale. The war was not going well. Our forest was growing, and it filled us with unease. Then we heard the cries of pain and agony from one on the outer edge. The forest was supposed to be off limits in respect for the dead, but more supplies were needed. Wood was needed to feed the machines of war. Helpless, we waited as our friends and grandchildren cut into us. The young ones were first, still using words to curse and cry out in pain. Older ones came next, projecting the bite of metal into bark. Finally, as the oldest fell, they sent the very sensation of death through us. I could not see, but I could feel the rumble of earth as their machines worked towards me. I could not hear, but I could feel the vibrations of their saws as they came closer. I could not scream, but I could feel the bite of their blades as I died my second death. My friend had a housewarming party for his new place. It was huge, beautiful, in the middle of a nice neighborhood, and he got it for pennies on the dollar. He kept insisting there was no catch, and then I saw the address on the invitation. His new house was a suburb over 40 miles from the heart of the city. There was no direct route between our houses. I live on a different edge of the city, My choices were to drive into the city and take the freeway back out, or find an alternate route. Between us were citrus groves, cotton fields, desert wasteland, and mountains. Google showed one little winding road that would take me most of the way until Duncan, which connected the last 5 miles. Seemed like a fun drive. In the bright sun, a vista of sand and swirling dust devils before me, I felt like I was driving through Tatooine. I saw one other car the entire drive until I passed an old filling station. Dan's Gas and Burgers. The burgers probably sucked, but I logged the location into my memory for later and made the turn onto Duncan Road. It looked like a town had once sat on Duncan. Little houses with sagging roofs and rotting doors crowded the asphalt. Broken windows offered glimpses of still furnished interiors. The sky seemed to darken as I drove, the vibrant, almost turquoise blue turning a muddy purple. I felt uneasy, afraid maybe, but more like I was heading toward a test I hadn't studied for. The houses grew closer together, the brick chimney of one pressing against the deck of another. Patios and porches intertwined in a violently perverted dance, wood splintering. Through the jagged shards of glass, I could see people sitting in chairs, playing cards. Their skin hung from their faces like molted cheese sliding from an upturned pizza. I jabbed my foot into the accelerator, but the houses wouldn't stop. I drove for 5, 10, 30 miles. Duncan Road seemed to stretch into infinity. I knew I couldn't get out of the car. I could feel them waiting for me. Instead, I turned in a sharp U and raced back down the road. In seconds, the sky brightened and I was back at Dan's Gas and Burgers. A little flag flapped in the wind. I asked Dan for directions to my friend's town, and he told me Duncan used to go through, but a flood washed it away a few months ago, and the country hadn't repaved. When I got back in my car, I could clearly see the bright orange road closed sign that hadn't been there before. I went to the party and made myself forget. And then I noticed streets called Duncan where they shouldn't be. I avoided them, stopped driving altogether. Last night, someone broke the windows of the house across from me. The roof had been sagged by morning. I can see them inside. I've always had a bit of a chocolate obsession since the peak of my adolescence. My delicacy of choice, M&Ms. The mouth-watering combination of a candied shell and milk chocolate center gives me a sensation more pleasurable than sex. It was the beginning of fall, and Mars Inc. had recently released a new trial flavor that I couldn't wait to get my hands on. They'd be similar to the peanut M&Ms, but the candied shell would have the taste of either pumpkin or pecan pie. The trial would only last around 2 weeks, so the moment they hit the shelves, I was there to buy the biggest bag they had. The minute I opened the bag, the sweet smell of freshly baked pie filled my nostrils. This had to be the pinnacle of all flavors they've produced. As I started into the bag, my mouth began to salivate profusely. I slowly reached into the bag, reveling every moment I took. I gripped a handful of the exquisite beauties and stuffed them into my mouth. As I chewed, I noticed that there was something unnatural about the taste. I felt the unpleasant sensation of a popping, followed by a sickly-tasting juice-like substance. I grudgingly swallowed the putrid-tasting candies. A look of confusion diffused across my face. Maybe that was just a bad batch, I thought to myself while reaching in for another handful. No matter how much I ate, it still had that disgusting taste. I decided to go back to the store and confront them about the foul-tasting candy. That's when I was told something that made my insides churn with repugnance. Apparently, there was a rat infestation at the manufacturing plant. Thousands of the little pests managed to get themselves chopped into little pieces and baked inside over 10,000 bags of candy. I was one of the lucky ones that bought a pack, and I ate nearly the entire bag. I don't remember much of my childhood. I'm not saying it was a bad childhood, like I was rarely scolded and had the occasional slap on the wrist when I was naughty, as most kids do. No, I don't remember much of my childhood because, when I think of it, I only remember being the biggest scaredy cat in the world. I laughed about it when I reached my 20s. It actually became a point of conversation during dates and social gatherings. How I used to cover my head in the blankets and cry for my parents when I heard the scraping of the closet door and see the pale, withered man with a sinister smile staring at me through the crack in the dressers. I'd giggle along with my date about how vivid my imagination was. I actually think it was the story that landed me my gorgeous wife Jenna. I remember reciting it on our third date as she grabbed my right hand before creasing up in a fit of laughter. I hadn't thought of the pale-faced man in a few years, or how vivid my imagination was as a child. I'd almost forgotten about being scared as a little boy and covering my head in the blankets and screaming for my parents. But now I'm not sure what to do. Around 3 a.m. last night, our 5-year-old son bolted into our bedroom, his pajamas soaked in sweat and tears plummeting down his cheeks, telling me a scary man with a white face was smiling at him through his bedroom closet. My sister's presence was a problem to begin with. From an early age, I didn't like to share anything. Our food, our space, our parents. It was all mine, and there was no room for this intruder. So I killed her. I remember wrapping the cord around her throat. I remember her kicking and flailing, and eventually giving in to an early death. With her gone, I thrived. I had it all to myself. My food, my space, my parents. They never knew it was me, and all that they ever told me was that I had a sister, a twin, and that she had died. They said I wouldn't remember her. Eventually I grew bold and asked what happened to her. And, as with any mention of children, my mother teared up and my father wrapped an arm around her shoulder. She was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around her neck. Oh, I know, Mommy. I know. Before I went to bed, I left my phone charging. After I turned off the lights, I noticed the tiny LED light in the charger emitted quite a glow for its size. It illuminated the entire white wall in front of me. As I was waiting to fall asleep, just for fun, I tried to make some shadow shapes with my hands. None of them came out as I envisioned. I could barely make a dog and a rabbit. I chuckled, remembering that cliché in cartoons, where they create perfect objects and scenes out of completely unrelated hand positions. I was attempting to do one last one, when several other pairs of hands completed the tree I was poorly trying to form. I was unable to even blink due to pure dread and panic. They frantically continued to create increasingly disturbing shadows of things not of this world. His day started as any other weekday. 6:30 a.m., the alarm goes off. A tight, quick stretch. And then he rubs the sleep from his eyes. After a quick shower and shave, he wakes her with a quick knock and a "Good morning, sweetie." Not much of a response as usual. He was, by society standards, too old for her. He approaching 50, and her barely into her 20s. He makes the usual breakfast: coffee, an English muffin, 1 egg, a few tomato slices, and 2 pieces of bacon for him. Plain oatmeal and almond milk for her. He eats quickly and brings her breakfast to the bedroom door. Another knock, and through a small slot he slides the tray of food, just to within reach of the restraint's limits. "See you after work," he says, as the horn from the office carpool is heard from the driveway. That's all the time I have for today, my friends. I hope you're having a wonderful day or evening. I'm Imori. Now, listen to the spooky tunes.